Hey Jason, sorry I'm late. I had a lot going on, and in the video I was editing for this week I decided I didn't like and I trashed it. So, without further ado, it is March 8th and this is my video on invasive species. You asked me about invasive species once and you said, what is the big deal? The big deal with invasive species is that they come from a different place, and when they're in a place that they don't have natural predators, they can quickly expand and reproduce and take over and lessen biodiversity. With less biodiversity, we have less room for cushion should things like disease take another species from the list. The first invasive species I wanted to talk about is English ivy. I've had a lot of experience with this one. It lived in Santa Cruz. It lives anywhere where it's wet and warm all year. English ivy is an ivy that is very thick in a ground cover. It covers everything. It's not a huge deal except for it covers everything and kills it, including sometimes all the way up to trees. It kills trees by growing all the way up into their canopy and literally taking the light right out of their leaves. It covers everything, as you see in these pictures here. The other problem is that nothing really eats English ivy. So as it's covering everything and killing off the natural ground cover like redwood sorrel and other ferns, those native things that are being eaten by other animals are dying off, and the English ivy is replacing it and nothing can eat it. English ivy does really well against deciduous trees. It grows up its trunk, and then winter comes, and when they drop their leaves it gets as much light as it needs. It continues to grow through the winter and grows out over its branches and has a head start before the leaves come back. The next one I want to talk about is bullfrogs. I didn't even realize bullfrogs were invasive in California when I first came here, until I caught one at camp, showed it to a bunch of kids because it was the biggest bullfrog I'd ever seen, and then released it, and some of the naturalists freaked out. Bullfrogs live naturally on the eastern side of the United States, and they make for good eating. What's the big deal about having this harmless little frog around? The fact of the matter is, the bullfrog will eat anything that fits in its mouth, including other frogs. But enough about invasive species that only we're going to have to see and deal with. A couple of invasive species that you can enjoy yourself in Michigan are things like purple loosestrife. This beautiful flower covers entire fields of swampland. It's very pretty. The only problem is it grows in the exact same ecosystems that grows cattails. A lot of different things eat cattails, including muskrat. Muskrat, in turn, gets eaten by a lot of other things like mink or weasels. And with no cattails, all of their ecosystems are affected. One most of you already know about is zebra mussels. Zebra mussels have come into our Great Lakes, and they cover everything. The zebra mussel is a filter feeder. It's even been found on other mussels, as this picture shows. The problem is it's small and has a much harder shell than our local mussels, and so fish have a hard time eating it. They also cover things so entirely that things like intake pipes and propellers get covered to the point of not working anymore. Along with the zebra mussel comes the round goby. The round goby lived with the zebra mussel and even used to eat it. But now that the round goby lives in the Great Lakes, it's found that our own mussels are more to its liking. Bigger, softer shells, more food for one bite. Asian carp are an up-and-coming issue for the Great Lakes. The term Asian carp covers several different species of carp that were released during Hurricane Katrina and the river started flooding. But now that they've been set free, they're breeding on their own and in massive numbers. These fish average weights of 30 and 40 pounds and can get up to weights of 110 pounds. Now that wouldn't be a huge deal, except they're also very fond of jumping, and the sound of boat motors a lot of times can spur on their jumping sessions. People have been knocked out, broken arms, and lost control of their boats as they've been hit by the Asian carp. The fear is if it makes it to the Great Lakes, it's going to eat all the other fish out of house and home. Lastly, my least favorite is the sea lamprey. Sea lamprey showed up in the 1830s or 40s, and then it really made its big debut in the 1930s. It's an ugly fish that attaches itself to other fish and sucks their blood. It leaves holes like this. And as you can imagine, with a couple of holes in you, it's hard to be a healthy fish. Sea lamprey devastated the lake trout and salmon populations in the Great Lakes and have cost us millions in both controlling them and loss of fisheries. That's all I got, Jason. I look forward to seeing your video next week.